The Shy Food Truck Fest celebrates Chicago's rich and diverse culinary culture. The fest takes place every Friday through October 4th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Daly Plaza, 50 West Washington. Escape the ordinary lunch and enjoy local food favorites with the lakefront breeze against the backdrop of a Chicago landmark, the Chicago Picasso sculpture. The Shy Food Truck Fest is hosted by the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. For more information, visit chicago.gov/Food Truck Fest. Now, I know because you listen to this show, you love Chicago. In fact, you probably know your community very well. Maybe you're involved in a block club or some other neighborhood organization because you're passionate about the place you live. Well, you might be able to turn that passion into a profession, helping others find neighborhoods that they love with a career in real estate. When you earn your license with Realtors Real Estate School, you'll have access to a community of real estate professionals who can offer guidance and mentorship. Learn how you can get started this summer. Visit realtorsrealestateschool.com/begin. Today on CityCast Chicago, all summer long, we have been telling you to go outside and buy local and our walking guides at farmers markets and street festivals. But seriously, are there some things that might just feel more comfortable for us to buy online? Like maybe sex toys, for example. Well, executive producer Simone Alisea talked with the Chicago sex shop owner about why it still might be better to shop local in this case, especially as September is Sexual Health Awareness Month. It's Thursday, September 12th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago is talking about. And as you might have already guessed, we're talking about sex this episode. So this interview touches on a couple explicit topics.
Sarah Dysak is the founder and owner of Early to Bed, a sex shop in Andersonville that was voted best sex toy shop in the Chicago Reader in 2023. Sarah, welcome to CityCast Chicago.
Thank you for having me.
We're so glad you're here. I'm really glad you're here. I've been familiar with Early to Bed since I was a college student at Northwestern and have really appreciated the work that y'all do. I want to start with, if you had to rate Chicago's sex shop scene based on diversity, accessibility, uniqueness, how many stars would you give it? Say 1 to 5.
Ooh, that's a really excellent question. I mean, I would skew it high just because of our existence in Chicago, of course. So I would say like a 4. You know, I don't know anywhere that's a 5, but I would definitely say 3 to 4 for sure. But there's sex toy shop deserts in Chicago. I don't have a great map in front of me or anything, but I do know that, they're kind of concentrated on the north and the east side of the city.
Has that changed at all since you first opened Early to Bed more than 20 years ago now?
Absolutely. Yes, it has fluctuated a lot. When I opened the store in 2001, there wasn't any other like woman-owned, like the friendly, education-focused store. And then actually a few of them opened up within a couple of years. And then a bunch of them closed. It's definitely different than when it was when I started. And even the sex toy stores that have been here since before I started look different than they did 20, 25 years ago.
What is sort of different now than when you were first opening up? Like, what was sort of the idea of what a sex shop was at that time?
Well, I would say in Chicago specifically, the stores that I knew about and had access to were very sort of old school in their, large portion of the shop was pornography and to show my age, VHS tapes. The sex toys were in their packaging. They were behind the counter and you could not turn them on, see how they felt, all of those things. The selection was, very basic, skewed towards men as purchasers, whether or not the men were purchasing for themselves or someone else. And that's been a big thing in the industry for many, many years. So all the packaging is out and it's kind of tacky, and the stores were not set up to really make people feel excited, sexually empowered, educated. Like you could ask, I had many experiences asking people questions and having the staff who was working at various stores just kind of like, look at me blankly, like, I don't know. Like, the idea wasn't that you're going to have educated consumers coming in and asking questions about their bodies, questions about the toys, questions about materials. And it was just like it was shame-based. It felt like, here's your black plastic bag. It was just like a different vibe kind of completely. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think for some people, that's the vibe they want in a sex shop. But as a young queer woman, that was not working for me at all.
Yeah, I think there is, right, that sort of, I think people can probably conjure that stereotype of uncomfortable place to buy pornography or what have you, whatever else you might be looking for. But let's do a little 101 here. Just what kinds of products could I find at a shop like Early to Bed?
Well, at a shop like Early to Bed that is specifically set up to be like more boutique-y and welcoming, and we really want to appeal to, folks who are uncomfortable in a traditional sex store, not been in a traditional sex store. So we, obviously we have vibrators and dildos and toys for penises. We have butt plugs and strap-on harnesses and some light BDSM stuff. We also have, books and massage stuff, games, things I like to think of as sort of our PG-13 kind of stuff. Some people, they want to try something new, but they're not really ready to kind of like get a vibrator or get a butt turner, but they want to like get something that's going to really be more sensual with their partner, or they need lube. I mean, lube is kind of the reason for the whole season or whatever. Like, that's why I got into this industry, that and vibrators. But we have a wide variety of really body safe lubes. We're really into that. But we also carry period products and pelvic health items that are, recommended by pelvic floor therapists. And one thing that Early to Bed does that I think is pretty unique in Chicago is we have a really substantial selection of gender affirming gear.
Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, what are some other local shops that you might recommend to folks?
Well, we are located just a couple blocks away from a store called Full Kit Gear. That is a little bit, it's sort of like, it's got a lot more clothing. It's more male oriented. I like to think of it as like, if our toys are all too small for you, that's a good place to check out because they're small as our large in some respects. And they're fine folks. They're just very, we have a nice relationship with them. There's also a store in Rogers Park called Leather 6410. It sells a lot of the same stuff we do, but they also do a lot of leather stuff and some more custom work. And again, sort of when it comes to like the kink stuff, if what we sell is a little too tame for you, it's a good place to kind of go for your next level of stuff. And then there's the Pleasure Chest in Wicker Park. I would say they were kind of the most similar to us as far as like the breadth of stuff that they carry and the way that they're set up. They're a bigger corporation. They have stores in other cities as well. But they're definitely an option for folks who are looking for stuff.
As far as a couple of West and South Side picks, I had read Pretty Things Underneath in Garfield Park and Romance Room in Morgan Park, if folks are looking for some other local spots in their neighborhood. I'm curious, are there any equivalents in Chicago to like a Target, like a big box store or chain kind of sex shop? Does that exist?
Well, so there are some. Lover's Lane is one of the more ubiquitous chains, but you often find them more in the suburbs or even there in the city in the strip malls. There's also Hustler Hollywood, which is, they're not like a Target in this. There's nothing as big as a Target. That would just be, that would be bonkers.
There's no warehouse of sex toys in Chicago.
I think that in Chicago proper, there really aren't, but you'll find in like smaller cities or more rural areas where there's fewer shops, you might find that there's some bigger chains that have like a larger storefront that has, more thousands of square feet. And that's great. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think one of the things that boutiques like us or the other stores in Chicago that I know of are able to offer is this idea of a curated selection, because so much of the stuff that comes out of this industry, I'm just going to be honest, it's garbage. It's material that's not safe for your body. It's motors that die after a week. It's overpriced things that don't do what they say they're going to do. And so one of the things you're getting when you go to a smaller store actually is that you're getting somebody who's made the first level of choices for you and gone through, like, we test things out, we make sure they're safe, we make sure that they work. And if something looks cool and we saw it on TikTok and we have it in our hands and it doesn't work like it's supposed to, or you can't turn it on, we're not going to carry it, even if it's like the hippest, coolest new thing, because we don't want to sell somebody something we wouldn't use ourselves, even if not everything is, everybody's jam. And I think that's something to think about, like, that while there may be these giant stores, it can be overwhelming, and it can be also, you don't really necessarily know that you're getting something that's worth it, because often buyers in those places just buy everything that comes out that's new.
I also imagine it's something akin to like fast fashion, right? Of like, you might be getting something that is very cute, but has been, mass produced at such a high level that it wears out within, 5 wears. Is that like an accurate analogy, do you think?
For sure. Like, the majority of the stuff that we would have in a sex toy store is mass produced stuff, comes from overseas, usually China. Often variations on a theme. You'll see 3 different companies selling the exact same toy for a wide variety of price points. It just comes from the same factory but has different boxes. And you'll see stuff that, some stuff's made in the U.S., but for the most part, if it turns on, it's usually not made in the U.S. But, smaller sex toy stores, boutiques, stuff like that, we're able to source stuff from smaller makers. So in addition to kind of the mass-produced stuff that we have, that a lot of it is still really good, we're able to carry stuff from local makers. I have a friend who makes us beautiful handmade paddles. We get silicone toys from small companies that are working in the U.S. and sourcing stuff more locally, or we can buy from a company that has only 2 items, right? And so that they're making very specific items for specific needs. We can look for stuff that is more disability friendly, or is more gender friendly or age friendly. So there's a lot of things that do fall into that kind of fast fashion, and then there's also things that are also more artisan made, so to speak. And you'll find that small stores are going to have those, whereas bigger stores that have 12 locations aren't going to be able to source a paddle maker from down the street who finishes everything by hand.
With the election less than 2 months away, now is the perfect time to make your plan if you're voting. You want to vote by mail? Vote early? Or you just want to know where your polling place will be on election day? Head to chicagoelections.gov to get started. But since you're a CityCast listener, you're probably thinking, Kobe, I already know that. Well, how about this? You can take it a step further by serving as an election judge in your community to help run a smooth and accessible election day on November 5th. Now, you must be a U.S. citizen and a registered voter in Cook County, but you can earn anywhere from $170 to $230 for your service. And if you speak Spanish, Hindi, Polish, Korean, Tagalog, or a Chinese dialect, the Chicago Board of Elections definitely needs your help. So head to pollworker.chicagoelections.gov to learn more and apply. You ever been interested in clear aligners like Invisalign, but you're worried about the cost or whether it fits into your busy lifestyle? Well, with Aligner Experts, you don't have to compromise on your smile. As orthodontists, they've had the privilege of witnessing the remarkable transformations of patients' smiles, which often can translate into a boost in their confidence. Aligner Experts is redefining convenient and accessible clear aligner solutions. With customizable treatments, transparent pricing, cutting-edge 3D scanners, and remote monitoring technology, you could transform your smile through the convenience of your own schedule. Stop in at their West Loop, Old Town, or Lakeview clinic today for your complimentary smile assessment. Aligner Experts, your destination for advanced clear aligner solutions. So maybe you out here trying to live a greener life. Maybe you want to reduce the amount of food waste heading to Chicago's landfills and you're thinking about composting. If so, you got to try Waste Not. Here's how it works. Waste Not gives you a 5-gallon bucket with an airtight lid. That's where you're going to toss your food scraps, cooked or raw, paper products like napkins and coffee filters, and anything else that's certified compostable. Then the Waste Not team comes and collects your full bucket in electric service vehicles, might I add, and they leave you a clean, empty one. This happens every week or every other week, depending on your needs. Plus, for my gardeners out there, y'all gonna be able to get back some of the finished compost you helped create without ever having to deal with all the gross parts of the process. So give Waste Not a try and check out wastenotcompost.com. CityCast Chicago listeners can test the service with a free month by using promo code CityCastCompost.
It's interesting that you bring up sort of the VHS tapes of pornography, because I think in 2024, that is something that the vast majority of people are getting online. And to be honest, if I'm thinking about most sex-related products, I think it would kind of seem more private, more discreet, maybe even less expensive to just order something online, have it delivered to me. Why should someone in Chicago physically visit a sex shop in 2024?
Well, I think you're totally right about all those things. And we're so used to this online economy, and you can buy things whenever you want and I appreciate the convenience. I think for a lot of folks, if you have access to a sex toy store, especially if you're in Chicago or somewhere that has a wide variety of sex toy stores, I think what's really crucial is when you go into the store, you can touch things. You can see what the vibration quality is if it turns on. You can see what 7 inches looks like, versus what you imagined it looked like. The scale is hard to tell. The density of materials, soft versus hard. How do you use things? And we have a lot of clients who are first-time purchasers, or they're new to this whole world of sex toys. And so when they come in, they have a lot of super basic questions, which we love, and you're just not going to necessarily get those questions answered when you're shopping online. And you're going to often get something that is heavier, smaller, bigger, weaker, whatever, than you expected or want. And then if you're shopping from a reputable place, you're not going to be able to return that most of the time, because you don't necessarily want to shop from a store that takes returns on sex toys, because there's no way to prove that these things stayed in their box the whole time. So I think that you have that value of having a better idea of what you're getting and being able to have your questions answered at the same time.
I had never thought about the returns thing, actually. And now just a little shudder there, yeah. I think. It's interesting, too, because I know Early to Bed during the height of the pandemic, 2020, 2021, you guys had switched and done delivery. I'm really curious just how that time in general kind of shifted the business for you, because, that was a time when many of us were alone in our homes.
Look, the lockdown and COVID, it was terrible. It was awful for people, health, culture, all those things. It wasn't awful for the sex toy industry in general, I gotta say. We shut down and pivoted right away to, our website, which had already been up and running for a long time. I've never worked so hard in my life as I worked during this lockdown, because we were shipping so much. People were trying all kinds of new things. It was so interesting to see how, I would say, sort of like your B-level interests, like anal toys and strap-on toys and things that are not necessarily your first purchase all the time, were really skyrocketing. So people were like, okay, we're here for the next 6 weeks. What are we going to do that we haven't done before? BDSM stuff like that. So yeah, we kept really busy. And that really kind of continued for a while until things started to open back up again and people started to shop in person again.
Are you saying that as stuff started to open up again, things kind of leveled off, or did you still see kind of an increased interest in sex toys, books, accoutrement, as people were returning kind of back as well?
It's sort of hard to gauge, right? Because also we are then coming into this economic sort of, inflationary, lots of things were changing as far as how consumers were spending their money. 2021 was like the peak of our business as far as, revenue and stuff like that. And things have kind of leveled off and gone down a little bit since then. What I've noticed, and all this is sort of anecdotal, I'm not a researcher or anything, is that there seems to be more comfort with people and boundaries and accessing things that they want. Like, I think we learned so much about navigating the world, either like more isolated, but also deciding for ourselves what felt safe, what felt good for us. And I think that we kind of see more people then embracing like, this is what I want. And this is, I don't know, like selfishness is not the right word, but self-identifying what is important, but also more boundaries. Like, you know what, I'm not going to date people and have sex with them if it sucks. I'm going to decide, instead of doing what I'd done pre-pandemic, to take more care of myself and spend more time at home alone with my vibrator or whatever it is. So I think we're still seeing a little bit in the change of attitude in general. But again, this is, this is anecdotal and not science, but
I totally get it. I think there's very much a conversation of this is what makes sense for me and my body specifically is talking about, oh, I'm only going to wear a mask when I go into spaces because this is what makes sense to me, or I want to make sure that I'm staying distance. Like, and people talking about that openly in a way that we weren't really before.
So much more. Yeah. Boundaries and all of that personal relationship to your body thing, I think it changed a lot for a lot of people.
It's so interesting because earlier we were sort of talking about the taboo around sex shops and sort of how that had kind of kept them in this kind of maybe not so comfortable place. I just got my flu shot at CVS and I saw that there were vibrating toys that were being sold next to the condoms and lube, which have also kind of increasingly more options I'm seeing on those aisles as well. I guess I'm just kind of curious, like, what you make of that that kind of development. I was really surprised to see it.
I mean, my feelings could not be more mixed about this subject because as somebody who has faced just, owning a sex shop, you are prohibited from using certain banks, from using certain credit card processes. You cannot advertise on Meta unless you're that, so whatever. Like, there's all these restrictions. We've been dropped for our insurance company. Our insurance costs more than like people who have large equipment that they use. Like, it's still this huge taboo. We can't rent certain places. To see stuff at CVS or Target it's so exciting because you're like, wow, this is, everyone is seeing this. These are on the shelf. They're becoming less taboo, more acceptable. But then it's also frustrating as a small business because then you're like, well, and they can pay to advertise on Meta and they don't have these restrictions on their credit card processing and all of this stuff because it's a small portion of what they sell or because they're this giant business. And so there's like this push and this pull. And then also, yeah, sure, we could lose customers to Target, which, let's just be honest, that kind of sucks. I've noticed those boxes are extra discreet, which means they're almost like buying a blind box sex toy sometimes.
I think the case that the one I went to was even locked too. So it was like you would have to ask someone to come unlock it to even just like get the box.
Yeah. And so then, my hope too, my optimism is that someone buys their first vibrator at Target and they're like, oh, I want something different, but they only have those other two things at Target. So I'm going to go to a sex toy store and talk to somebody or find something that's better. So maybe it's like a good like intro to people to sex toys. So I love that it's fighting against the taboos and I like that it's normalizing our sexuality. I still think, from a more selfish place, it's not my favorite thing in the world, but I would rather go out of business because sex toys are so ubiquitous and everyone has this amazing relationship to their body, their sexuality. We talk about it everywhere and there's no taboos and all this stuff. Then go backwards and, think that all this stuff is taboo. But I would like to just be in business for at least a few more years. Hopefully it'll all just be this creation of more of a market. That's my fantasy.
Well, I suspect people are hearing this conversation who still might feel nervous or awkward stepping into a sex shop for the first time. What would you say to them?
I would say, first of all, we're here for you. I mean, that's what we're here for. The number one, we love customers who know what they want and are comfortable, but we really want to be the place where we can support and embrace the folks who are new to sex toy stores. I think in general, even if you're not coming early to bed, like remembering that everybody who's in that sex toy store is there for a similar reason. So there's like nothing to be embarrassed about. The people who work in sex toy stores for the most part, especially again, your smaller boutique stores, you're going to find are interested and excited to help you. They're there to help you on this journey. Once you realize how these things really aren't that threatening and they're fun and you can enjoy yourself with them, usually it helps folks, but I get it. And I think that taking it slow, bringing a friend can be really helpful. Like make it a little like, let's just go check this out. And sometimes going with other people the first time, just for looking around, I actually think is great. Like you don't have to buy anything, right? Go see how it feels, touch things, fondle things, and then maybe you can go back on your own without your crew and have a more personal experience. But we also all the time we get, groups of folks who come in and everyone buys the same vibrator, whatever it is, like it's a fun thing to do with friends and lovers, obviously, too. It's always fun to go with your partner or partners.
I think the fun part is really key because that's the whole point. It's fun stuff. You've got fun stuff in the shop.
I mean, they're toys. They're called toys. I think a lot of American ideal, whatever, has separated the idea of sex from pleasure. And I think we need to remember that sex is about pleasure and it's about feeling good, whether it's with yourself or with someone else or other people.
My one last tip, too, is that if you're already buying sort of essentials like condoms, lube, things like that these shops also sell those things. And so if you wanted to just make your weekly, monthly condom run at a local shop, check out what they have, you can do that too.
Well, and just to piggyback on that, also to say, one of the things that really drew me into this industry too is having been assigned female birth and having that body, a lot of the lubes weren't working with my body chemistry. And I think again, you can get all different kinds of lubes at I was going to call it the hardware store. Don't get those lubes at the drugstore. But, a really simple thing. If you never use a sex toy in your life, chances are if you have sex with yourself or someone else, a lubricant at some point or other is going to be great. And so we really pride ourselves on being able to help people navigate that and feeling what they feel like in your hand and reading and having someone demystify the ingredients. Is this good for me? Is this bad for me? So I think too, come and buy a vibrator. But if you're just here for lube and condoms, you're also going to find condoms you might not find at the grocery store too at a small shop. Things that are, vegan or just produced differently. So yeah, right. Like there's also books, there's great bookstores in Chicago, but we really curate a collection specifically of sexuality books and stuff like that. Plus, you could also just come in and buy socks because we have a lot of socks. So it's a good way to I really need some socks. And then you can not have to worry about engaging if you're not ready.
I love the idea of you're buying your holiday gifts and you get someone a pair of socks and someone's like, where'd you get them?
Yep. The sex shop.
Well, Sarah Dysack, owner of Early to Bed in Andersonville, thank you so much again for taking the time and talking with me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was a total pleasure.
Some good news. I got a great film screening for you this weekend. Southeast, a city within a city, tells the story of Chicago's Southeast Side neighborhoods, from early settlers to the boom of the steel industry to the shuttering of manufacturing across the area and the decades of implications. The screening is this Saturday at Steelworkers Park, East 87th Street at Lakeshore Drive. I'm gonna drop a link for you in the show notes. As always, I appreciate you for listening and reading. We're gonna be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace. Ba-da-da-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.